Species. Unite.
I could be walking in Central Park and come up on one of these horse and buggies. I don't think twice about it because I see it as part of the New York attraction. You know, you have the Statue of Liberty, you have Times Square, and you have these romantic horse and buggy things where people they get married in the park and they ride these carriages, and tourists they take these rides in Central Park. It's romantic. It's something beautiful to see, but I never thought for 1 second that these horses are abused.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Novogratz. This is Species Unite. New York City has a big, visible animal cruelty issue. Horses are forced to pull carriages for long hours in all types of weather in the middle of Manhattan. 3 years ago, a carriage horse named Ryder was a victim of this cruelty. He collapsed on a Manhattan street after being worked for hours in the summer heat. 2 months later, he was euthanized. His story sparked global outrage. Ryder's driver, Ian McKeever, was charged with animal cruelty. McKeever's trial just took place a few weeks ago, but he was ultimately acquitted. This conversation is with Edita Birnkrant, the executive director of New York Class, and Tracy Winston, one of the jurors from Ryder's trial. New York's weak and outdated animal protection laws have not changed since Ryder died. And because of this, there was another avoidable death that occurred just a week after we recorded this interview. A horse named Lady died while pulling a carriage in Manhattan. This conversation is about accountability, about corruption, and about what happens when justice fails the most vulnerable. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Why don't each of you, we'll start with Edita, introduce yourself and say who you are and how you're connected to Ryder.
So I'm Edita Birnkrant, executive director of NY Class. We are the organization that is working on shutting down the abusive horse-drawn carriages. So Ryder's case, his story went viral worldwide with the footage we released, and Ryder was kind of the poster horse for everything that's wrong with this abusive horse carriage business.
And Tracy?
Hi, my name is Tracy Winston. I was on the jury of this horrendous case regarding the late Ryder. I was called to do my civic duty. I was very proud to do it. The outcome, that's another story. Ever since the trial, the verdict, I was not aware of the behind the scenes, if you will, regarding the horse and carriage industry here in New York City. Ever since this has been exposed to me and brought to my attention, I want to be a part of making change on behalf of Ryder. So I'm thrilled to be here, to be part of the change.
Well, thank you both for being here. So before we start, because there's a lot of people who have never heard of Ryder and don't really know what's happening, that now in 2025, people probably still know somewhere that we have horse carriages, which is insane, that it's archaic. And so many cities have shut this down because it's abusive and terrible. But will you talk a little bit about the whole situation of how this is still happening? And then we'll get to Ryder's story, and then we'll get to the trial.
The number one question I get is, how is this still happening in New York City? We thought this was shut down years ago. All these other cities around the world, Chicago, San Antonio, Texas, Montreal, Toronto, London, Paris, Barcelona, Mumbai, India, Guadalajara, Mexico, Beijing, like the list goes on and on. So we're stuck in the 1800s in New York City for a simple reason that most people are familiar with: political corruption. Namely, there's a union that's backing the cruel owners, such as Ian McKeever, who was charged with animal cruelty. Unions are very politically powerful. And unfortunately, they're doing the wrong thing here by backing up a business that is not only cruel to the horses, but unsafe for pedestrians, for tourists, for everyone in Midtown. Horses are nervous prey animals, and their instinct is to run when they're frightened. Just in May, recently, in the course of 1 week, 3 horses spooked in the park, ran out of control, sent carriage drivers to the hospital, nearly trampled to death people walking in the park. So it shows, whether it's in the park, whether it's in traffic on the streets, it's unsafe for the horses, for everyone else, and it's cruel. There's criminal abuse happening, such as what happened to Ryder. Ryder was a 26-year-old horse. His owners falsified his health records to say he was 13 years old. No one knew this until after he had collapsed. So he collapsed on a hot day in Hell's Kitchen after being worked all day, 8 hours. The videos of that went viral. It was very disturbing to see this emaciated, clearly older, unwell horse on the ground, unresponsive for an hour. Police saved his life by hosing him down, putting ice on him. But subsequently, there were cruelty charges filed. And then it was uncovered that this was indeed a very sick horse. Ryder was riddled with cancer. He was elderly. He was severely underweight. We know all these things to be true. We have his records. He had a clean bill of health from the veterinarian that the carriage owner paid. And this is something we've been pointing out for years, that clearly unwell, sick horses that are limping from leg injuries, underweight, ribs sticking out, hips sticking out, sick horses are getting clean bills of health and being forced to work till they collapse, till they die. So Ryder is just but one horse that is part of an industry where this kind of mistreatment and, we believe, criminal abuse is just a normal course of business.
I find the craziest thing about it is I don't know a single New Yorker who is like psyched that we have carriage horses.
Actually, recent polling showed that 71% of New Yorkers support banning it. And I think a certain percentage also wasn't sure because a lot of people maybe never have thought about it, which is kind of what Tracy said, that he never really thought about them before. And then when you learn more, most New Yorkers are on our side. And even a lot of tourists that we speak to, they take pedicabs instead of the horse carriages. Because let me tell you, those videos, not just of Ryder, but of other horse collapses and deaths, horses running wild, those videos reach all corners of the world. Tourists don't want to support that kind of abuse, which could also put them in the hospital. You always say, if we never had horse carriages and then today someone came to the city council and said, hey, let's plop 68 18th century rickety horse carriages into the middle of Midtown Manhattan, is that a great idea? And they don't have these horse-drawn carriages don't have any kind of safety features because they're not motor vehicles. They don't have to adhere to any kind of road or safety features. So that's why when something goes wrong, they just fall apart often. The carriages fall apart, the horses break free. So it really is a recipe for disaster, and it shouldn't take people being killed as a result to shut this down. And we are pushing to pass Ryder's Law. The legislation was introduced before Ryder's death, but after his death, it was renamed in his honor because we can't take away Ryder's suffering. And even though the verdict in the abuse case for Ryder did not go the way we wanted, and that was for a lot of different reasons, namely as well the fact that the animal cruelty laws are very antiquated and ineffective at protecting animals.
I want to ask you a question, Tracy.
Yeah.
When you went into this case, you're brought on the jury. What did you know at the time before it all started about New York City horse carriages?
It's as if I had blinders on to the horse and buggy industry.
Had you heard of the Ryder case?
No, it was my first time. And when they interviewed us, if you will, to be selected, I'm like, all due respect to Ryder, because of what I didn't know then, I'm like, I have better things to do with my time than to sit on this case. And don't misunderstand me. I love animals, but it's like I did not know the severity of this case until when the trial started. And boy, did I have a change of heart. But to answer your question, prior to this case and everything that was disclosed to us, I could be walking in Central Park and come up on one of these horse and buggies. I don't think twice about it because I see it as part of the New York attraction. You have the Statue of Liberty, you have Times Square, and you have these romantic horse and buggy things where people they get married in the park and they ride these carriages, and tourists they take these rides in Central Park. It's romantic. It's something beautiful to see, but I never thought for 1 second that these horses are abused.
And I'm sure that's a lot of people.
Right.
Don't think about it either direction.
Right. And they also, a lot of people think, well, if the city's allowing it to be here, it must be okay. And that ties back into the fact that no, it's really a self-regulated business. It's only their own vets checking on these horses. If I can tell you, we've been begging for years, the Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare, the city, we have documented horses that are limping in pain, hooves that are falling apart. These horses are in pain with every step. Underweight horses, sick horses. We beg the city to do anything. Very rarely, almost never, will they take action because their attitude is this is a private business. It's not our job to provide veterinary care for these horses. And while that may be true, that's a reason why we need to shut it down. If an elderly, cancer-ridden 26-year-old horse who was emaciated could get a clean bill of health and then collapse on the street, be worked to death, we can't even get a conviction for the driver who surely noticed something wrong with this horse. There were even witnesses who saw the horse struggling that day. But I think it speaks to how ineffective and weak and outdated the cruelty laws are. One of the big problems is the way the animal cruelty statute is written. The first word is overdrive. So the jury was told Ian McKeever, the driver of Ryder, is charged with overdriving his horse. That's a term from the 1800s. What does overdriving mean in 2025 in the modern world in terms of animal cruelty? So the prosecutors actually attempted, they had provided an alternate modern day definition of overdriving. The judge refused that, which was very disappointing because even the judge didn't know what it meant.
Right.
Nobody did, but he was just saying, well, we're sticking to the letter of the law. So that was very frustrating because there was no clear understanding of what they were even charging this man with or what it means in the modern world.
That's what I was going to ask. What exactly was he being charged with?
Essentially, he was being charged with overworking the horse. Right. But that word wasn't allowed to be used in the charges because the judge decided against clarifying it. And then to make it more confusing, torture is a word that's used in that animal cruelty statute. But that doesn't mean that he was being charged with torture. The prosecutors tried to say, we're not even saying that he abused Ryder. We're saying he overworked him. Like, in other words, a horse in this condition that was that underweight, was that weak, had no muscle. There was a forensic vet from the ASPCA testifying on behalf of the prosecutor. She had, examined Ryder after his collapse, and just based on videos and photos, it wasn't just that he was underweight. He had no muscle on his body. This was from his body wasting away from cancer.
And his age.
Right, and the age, right. Another problem I had, and Tracy had after he learned, was that Ryder's owner was Colm McKeever, Ian's brother. So Colm McKeever, after the fact, was found to have falsified Ryder's vet records, changing his real age from 26 to 13. And the city actually fined him for that. But the jury never got that information. They never knew that the age was falsified. All they were told was that initially Ian said this was a 13-year-old horse, and they later found out it was an older horse. But they never had the knowledge of knowing that there was real dishonesty there. And they never knew that Ryder had a large tattoo on his neck from his days as a harness racing horse, where in a database, within 2 minutes, you could find out his age. So the idea that they didn't know that this was an elderly horse, it's inconceivable. So I felt like the jury didn't have information that could have helped show, wait a minute, there's dishonesty going on here. They can't play dumb. They can't claim innocence with a horse like this, even though they did.
So, Tracy, talk about what you experienced being on the jury, like the before and after with the verdict.
Again, going back to that selection process, I remember several people standing up in front of the judge saying, I don't think I could be part of this, because they were clearly passionate about animals and, against animal cruelty, so on and so forth. And so during the trial, it was not disclosed to us that Ryder was put down until a day before.
Just to clarify for people, Ryder was put down a couple weeks after this, right? A few weeks?
Right.
Actually, we found out his spleen ruptured, and then it was 2 months after. So
after the
collapse,
day,
yes, he was taken
right.
away, he was put on a farm, gotten treatment, sent to Cornell. It was too late at that point. Yeah, so 2 months.
And when they disclosed to us that he was put down, the question that was going on in my head was he put down because of him having cancer, leukemia, or consequence of the fall, and or both? And if Ian knew he had cancer, then would he have taken him out that day? And you can clearly see that he was ill, he was underweight, and of course the conditions. So the issue that I have, the overarching issue that I have is, why would you take a sick animal out to work in god awful, hot temperature, 80, 90 degree weather? So all this was going around in my head, and I'm trying to, trying to figure out, when was that disclosed? When did the stable hand people knew that he had cancer, leukemia? When did the driver, in this case, Ian? And also, who makes these rules and regulations? And it was brought to my attention, well, if this was a rule that they should follow, who would
Enforce it?
Enforce it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's probably pointless, because if there's no one to enforce it, then.
Well, they're not supposed to work sick horses, but the problem is that it is a private industry.
Sure.
I think there's sometimes confusion, or there might have even been confusion in the jury, that somehow they work for the city, but they don't work for the city. It's a private industry. The city is supposed to regulate, but the carriage owners have their own vets. Those are the vets giving these horses a clean bill of health. So then if they're essentially committing fraud, in my opinion, if it's fraudulently approving these horses that are sick with a clean bill of health, that's still on the industry. So the city then is assuming that what they're sending them about these horses being in good health is correct.
Go back to the actual trial, though. How did the trial go down from your perspective? How did they present Ian, the driver? How did they present what he knew about the horse? Like, how did they make him so sympathetic? Talk about what you experienced, not knowing all the stuff you learned later, but the stuff you learned during the trial.
When he was on trial, he said he did not know. He said he did not know.
He did not know the horse was sick.
Right.
Of course he's going to say that.
Yeah, he said, I knew he was a little underweight, but in my estimation, it was still okay to take him out.
The thing is, it's so normalized for them to be working horses at death's door. I truly think the man doesn't think he did anything wrong, because he's gotten away with murder for all these years, and now he really got away with it. So that's part of it. A horse in that condition, listen to what they're saying, totally normal, an emaciated elderly horse with cancer. And we had others in the business, their vet testified for them, another carriage driver. I do think this is normal for them. Right. That's all the more reason to shut it down. They think this is perfectly fine. They defended it. And to add insult to injury, they presented the whole thing as if, Ryder just tripped. Ryder just tripped because there was an imaginary hill that no one could see, but trust us, it's there on 9th Avenue. Ryder just tripped. No reason. And then I guess suddenly he just got cancer and was,
he tripped and couldn't get up
for an hour, which that's a very important point. I'm not sure that the prosecution drove home the point that simply doesn't happen, that an animal doesn't just trip and not get up for an hour. And it took half a dozen mounted police hosing him, icing him, doing everything to save his life, while Ian sat with his feet up in the carriage smoking and texting.
I think what I'm trying to get at, though, is how did Ian get off?
Well, one thing that Tracy mentioned is, so this was a big problem. So the jury sat through 2 whole days before they even knew that Ryder was dead and that he had cancer. As far as they knew, this horse had collapsed on a hot day, then got back up and was at a farm somewhere. So they listened to all of the witnesses for the prosecution, not knowing that Ryder had
Was put
cancer.
down
The
Thursday.
day that they learned it was when the forensic vet for ASPCA testified. And then it was like this bombshell. But like Tracy said, had he known from the get-go, the witnesses testifying on behalf of the prosecution, he would have maybe absorbed it differently. There was a witness who saw Ryder hours earlier struggling in the park. Clearly, the jury disregarded her, didn't believe her, but had they known what they know now, like there's a reason Ryder took an hour to get up. This wasn't just a trip and then he got back up. So that was a huge mistake, I think, on the part of the prosecution. It should have been in the opening statements and throughout. This was a very sick horse and he's dead now. He had to be euthanized because he was so sick. So
And
that
it
was
should
tragic.
have been in there that we have normalized this as an industry, that we're bringing out sick, lame, injured horses to work all day.
Yeah, maybe they can't, I understand, like, there's a lot of, that would have been objected to. Like, you got to keep it to this horse.
Right.
They even said, the judge, this is not about the rest of the industry. It's just this one thing. Fine.
Okay.
Let's keep it to this one thing then. But so I feel like the jury really did not have very crucial information that they should have had.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But did they make Ian sympathetic? Did Ian seem like a victim?
I didn't see him as a victim. I'll just be very honest. I felt he dropped the ball that day. I felt like he should have had better judgment in taking that horse out, for Christ's sakes.
But why did the jury decide to acquit him?
When we went into the room and we started deliberating, I spoke first. I said, I have a few questions. I need some clarification because maybe I glossed over or who knows? I had, 6 or 7 questions that I needed answered. And one of them was, I just mentioned it, did Ian knew that Ryder had cancer? When was it disclosed that Ryder had cancer? And who all knew? And why was he put down? There were a number of things that I needed clarification to help me with my verdict. And once it came around, it just didn't sit well with me, even though I felt like my hands were tied. And that's not something I'm proud of.
No, and I'm definitely not judging you. I'm just
but
wondering how 12 jurors.
No, it was 6 actually.
It was
it's a
6.
misdemeanor.
Oh,
There were
It was
only
okay.
6. Yeah.
And
It was 5 men and 1 elderly woman.
it was. We went around the room, and the foreman lady, she was to my left. So everyone went after her, and I was to her right. So I was last.
Right.
And by time it got to me, everyone had said not guilty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, well, not guilty. And the pit of my stomach just dropped. I'm like, this doesn't feel good.
Right.
So that's why when we left the room, I needed to say something. I had no idea I was going to walk into the lion's den, but I wanted to give the public some type of perspective on how we came to that god-awful verdict. Things that I know there are gazillions of animal rights people out there, people who love animals. I love animals.
Yeah.
And what I said that day, it was so many people misunderstood what I was saying. I was saying, go after the shark, not the guppy, meaning go after the Department of Health. I'm no expert. I'm just everything that I see, it's coming from passion. I'm no expert I don't know anything about this industry.
Sure. No, of course. But did it, because he was on trial for overworking the horse without saying the word overworking, did it come across after the full trial that he wasn't overworking the horse?
Wow.
I think it was more like his whole, he just played dumb. I had no idea there was anything wrong. And they did let him, I think they did have sympathy for him. And I feel the prosecution, they let him ramble on, tell stories, make the jury laugh. I've been working with horses my whole life. Ian McKeever literally said, I know as much as a veterinarian. And then when they tried, they said, okay, well, when you put the gear on, the harness, don't you feel the body? So if you're saying that you can only tell a horse's age by the teeth, he is a very good liar. He was a very good liar.
I think the perspective between Edita and mine, she has so much knowledge of this industry.
Yeah.
She knows so much prior to and after. This is all new to me. If I knew half of what she knows, I probably would have had a guilty verdict.
Yeah.
That shows the prosecution didn't do a good job. I think you have to remember, they have never done a case like this with a carriage horse or any kind of working animal. They've done dog fighting cases, dog torture. Those don't go to trial. Those are pled out. So what we needed was an experienced litigator. I don't think we had that.
No.
And this is a very different kind of case than a dog torture case. That, and when you're going to trial. So I think they just didn't have experience. I think they underestimated how tough it would be, and that the sympathy might go more towards, and also so much of it is jury selection as well. The prosecution didn't ask even, have any one of you ever taken a horse carriage ride? Did you ever have an event on a horse carriage? Did you ever get married on a horse carriage? What the defense attorney did, which was very effective, was, I think he alluded to it, he weeded out people who have animals, who have compassion. He weeded out, he asked, he weeded out one. This was a very good question he asked. You're going to see footage of a horse on the ground. It's going to be upsetting. You're probably going to have a visceral reaction. Would that make it hard for you to be partial? Meanwhile, any abuse case of a human, a murder case, a child, a rape case, you're going to have a visceral reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it causes the people who have more of an awareness to be like, but that's what you're supposed to do with a jury when you're selecting the jury. Jury selection is its own science. And I felt like the prosecution dropped the ball. They should have pulled out of people, have you taken a horse carriage ride? Because that is a bias there that you could have weeded out, just like the defendant did. So I think, clearly they wanted people who didn't know about the case. They did weed out some people. One of the prospective jurors had heard about it. Like Tracy said, more than a few said, I don't think I can be partial because I am already against horse carriages. I don't think they should be here. But I think that was I just think they didn't have the experience with this kind of a case. And we're dealing with the antiquated laws, the problematic statute, the way it's written, and then very good manipulators, or in my opinion, that's my opinion, that absolutely they were lying, because even things that the veterinarian that testified for Ian had told media in the months after Ryder's death, literally this vet, Camilla Sierra, he testified for Ian, he said in a Gothamist interview, kind of throwing Ian under the bus, maybe to protect himself, he literally said, of course this horse collapsed. It's weak, it's underweight, shouldn't have been worked in this condition. Now imagine had the prosecutors shown that to the jury or questioned the vet on that. The vet was up there to say, the horse was underweight, but that's not that big of a deal.
Do you think the prosecutors thought the video would have been enough?
Probably.
I think so.
Yeah, right.
Because again, when we saw the videos and the pictures, it's like, oh my God.
But the problem is it wasn't enough, because you needed to prove that he knew before the collapse. As soon as I know they were filing this case, I said, the problem is going to be he's going to play dumb and say he didn't know. And the city did approve this horse. Of course, it was under false pretenses. So it's a systematic problem, but that still he shouldn't be off the hook for that. So it's multiple problems here.
Yeah.
The city, this is what we've been screaming about for years. They are approving sick horses with a clean bill of health. And then in a case like this, then it makes it harder to convince the jury, because naturally the driver, the owner, is going to lie. How could I know this was a sick horse? So that was, I think, once Tracy knew that, that's partly why he was so anguished and angry, right?
I'm not proud of that verdict, but what I want to do moving forward, how can I help this movement? Even though I was on that jury panel, but I'm aware now. Yeah. It's one more pair of fists in the fight.
Well, there's a few things, because one, as I was saying to you last week, Edita, no matter what the verdict was in this trial, This brought a whole new level of attention to the New York City horse carriage problem. And it brought in people who've never seen it before. It brought new people. It brought more attention. And so in that sense alone, it's a win.
Right.
Had he been guilty, he might have been guilty and then everything went back to normal and it wouldn't really made that big a difference to anyone except Ian.
There's also more outrage. People are outraged that, okay, this is yet another a sign that society, the laws don't protect animals.
It's also saying, hey, you can have a cancer-ridden horse who collapses on the street for an hour, and that's cool.
Right.
And so that brings a whole nother level of rage. So in some ways, it's not such a tragedy the way the verdict went, because I think the awareness and everything else is more important than what happens to Ian.
I think it awakened the sleeping giant, because yes, set aside that horrible verdict, but a lot of people are aware and people are more engaged, like myself. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I was on that jury and people are looking at me like, why the hell are you there?
You know what? It's very unusual for a jury member to speak out like this. And, we posted a video of interviews we did the day of the verdict when Tracy spoke with us. And there was some pushback from people like, oh, I don't want to hear it from him. He screwed up. He should have done a guilty verdict. I said, you know what? It takes tremendous courage and a deeply moral person to come out publicly knowing you're going to get pummeled and speak out. He doesn't have to be doing that. That just shows how compassionate and moral of a person you are to be speaking out now after the fact. So I'm very appreciative of that. I feel like that's a gift that he did not have to do that.
It would be great if he was found guilty for a minute.
Right.
And all these things, and it's great that it's illegal to bring the horses out in certain temperatures and humidity. And it's great they can't be out when it's a certain cold. But it's actually, none of it's great because it shouldn't exist in the first place. And the bigger picture is, this stuff needs to shut down. I mean, this is your life.
Exactly.
So you know that. But to go back to where I started with the craziness that New York City, of all places, is is still doing this, and they're defending it. We've had mayors saying, I'm shutting it down. We've had so many people come in for decades.
But there's also a lot of corruption.
Yeah.
Look at the situation with the mayor. Guess what? Transport Workers Union helped elect Mayor Adams. That's one of the main reasons why there wasn't support. The Speaker of the Council also. The union, it's tied into that. They're getting pressure because there are a number of council members who promised to sign this and won't do it because they don't have the courage to stand up to a union. There's plenty who do, and we're grateful for that, and we're going to keep pushing harder. I think we're going to win. It's just we want it sooner than later because there are horses suffering right now. More horses are going to spook, crash, possibly kill people, hurt people. Yeah. Horses will be worked to death. That's going to keep going on every day until we shut it down.
What do you think it takes to shut it down? What will it take?
I think enough pressure on the city council for them to do the right thing. We've been pushing for a hearing. The fact that we haven't had a hearing in all these years, again, it's because of the union pressure. I think it's just going to take more pressure, more outrage, more people contacting the city council, pushing for this. And
before we wrap this up, I want to talk about you. The two of you were filming the other day outside where these horses live.
Horses are herd animals. They're supposed to be grazing on pasture. That's what they need. They're trapped in a concrete cell 24/7. There's not even a patch of dirt for them to walk around. Imagine a huge animal, 1,800 pounds, some of them, just trapped in this little cell. Then when they're not trapped in the cell, they're chained up by the mouth, their whole body, in traffic, mobilized. That's a life of misery for a horse. Right. They don't deserve this. So, our goal is we have rescued multiple horses that are now living free, running free, being horses. That's what we want for all of them. There's homes for these horses. We've just got to release them from the cruelty first, pass the bill. And I think public awareness. We are getting, a new term, a new mayor, some new council members that we know are on our side. We hope we don't have to wait that much longer, but we're just going to keep pushing forward, full steam ahead.
And what can people do to support you and get behind you?
Well, New Yorkers definitely contact your council member. Contacting them is very important. They need to hear from their constituents because trust me, they're hearing from the union that's backing the council members. Contact your council member, ask them to support Ryder's Law. If you go to our website, our social media, we have a take action link that for wherever you live, doesn't have to be New York, you can contact 2 key officials, the Speaker of the Council, Adrienne Adams, and Lynn Shulman, who heads the Health Committee. She's the one who could schedule the hearing. So there's things that everyone can do regardless of where you live. Okay. So that's what we ask people to do for now.
Good. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad you've joined the movement.
I keep telling Edita, I said, I'm here. You call me and I'm there.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome, Tracy.
I will end with this. My grandmother would say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Thank you both so much for this. It is really important. So thank you.
Thank you for covering this.
It is too late for Ryder and for Lady, but it is not too late to act. So if you live in New York, please call your city council members and tell them it's time to bring Ryder's Law up for a vote and pass this bill to protect carriage horses from suffering and death on the city streets. To learn more about this, about New York Class, and about Ryder's trial, go to our website, speciesunite.com. We will have links to everything. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Species Unite. If you have a spare moment and could do us a favor, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps people find the show. I would like to thank everyone at Species Unite, including Gary Knutson, Caitlin Pierce, Amy Jones, Paul Healy, Santina Polky-Link, Bethany Jones, Hannah Gabrielson, and Anna Kalner, who wrote and performed today's music. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.